The series begins by showing a high school student named Yusuke, who realizes that he's already dead and has become a ghost when he sees his body about to be taken to an ambulance, and the people around him are unaware of his presence. The scene then shifts to 4 hours earlier when Yusuke was still at school. At that time, Yusuke, who was smoking on the school rooftop, was approached by his childhood friend, Keiko, who asked him to return to class because their homeroom teacher was looking for him. On the other hand, a high school student named Kirino was being bullied by some delinquent students who constantly extorted him. Soon after that, Yusuke appears to teach the bullies a lesson, but at the same time, a teacher arrives and mistakes Yusuke for the bully. Kirino tries to defend Yusuke, but one of the delinquent students warns him to stay quiet. The teacher seems to dislike Yusuke and insults him, but Yusuke completely ignores the insult and leaves after returning the money to Kirino. Annoyed, Yusuke decides to skip school and go home. When he arrives home, his mother, Atsuko, asks him about what happened at school and tells Yusuke to stop skipping school. After leaving home, Yusuke is confronted by his rival, Kuwabara, who challenges him to a fight. Despite his battered face from a previous fight, Kuwabara is still determined to defeat Yusuke, his strongest rival. Unexpectedly, Yusuke turns out to have impressive fighting abilities as he easily defeats Kuwabara and his friends without getting hurt. After defeating Kuwabara, Yusuke warns him not to challenge him to a fight again, as Kuwabara will never be able to defeat him. Shortly afterward, while Yusuke is about to have lunch at a restaurant, he suddenly finds a rolling ball heading towards him. At the same time, a boy named Masaru appears, and Yusuke immediately gives the ball to Masaru. While Yusuke is enjoying his lunch, Keiko suddenly enters the restaurant with her 2 friends. Keiko intends to invite her friends to have lunch together, but unexpectedly, her friends decide to leave immediately upon seeing Yusuke there. Realizing that her friends are afraid of Yusuke, known as a delinquent student, Keiko scolds him and tells him to behave. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a truck driver is completely unaware when an insect crawls on his face and begins to possess him. After the insect possesses his body, the truck driver suddenly loses control and drives his truck recklessly, crashing into several vehicles around him to get out of traffic congestion. As Yusuke leaves the restaurant, he suddenly hears commotion and sees people running in panic to save themselves because the driver is driving the truck at high speed. At the same time, Yusuke sees Masaru standing in the middle of the road and rushes to save him, but unfortunately, Yusuke is hit by the truck and dies on the spot. Shortly after realizing that he has become a ghost, a Grim Reaper named Botan suddenly appears and explains what has just happened to Yusuke. Botan then takes Yusuke to a hospital where Masaru is being examined by a doctor. Although he has some scratches and bruises on his body, the doctor assures that Masaru is in good condition, allowing him to go home. After ensuring that Masaru is okay, Yusuke finally accepts the fact that he is dead and doesn't care if Botan sends him to hell. Surprisingly, Botan informs Yusuke that he will not be sent to hell or heaven because Yusuke's death was not anticipated by the spirit world. Botan explains that during his life, Yusuke always did bad things, but he died to save someone else's life, which only happens once in 100 years. Botan then takes Yusuke to the spirit world to meet Koenma, the current ruler of the spirit world. When Yusuke arrives in the spirit world, Koenma tells him that he will be brought back to life and offers him a job as a detective investigating and solving cases involving demons in the human world. Koenma then shows Yusuke the insect creature that possessed the truck driver, causing chaos and leading to Yusuke's death, and explains to Yusuke that the creature is a parasitic monster from the demon world. Furthermore, Koenma instructs Yusuke to investigate the reason behind the appearance of this parasitic monster in the human world. Koenma assumes that Yusuke will accept his offer because he will be brought back to life. However, unexpectedly, Yusuke firmly rejects the offer and tells Koenma that he refuses to be ordered around by anyone, even as a ghost. Meanwhile, in the human world, a man named Sakio seems to approach a middle-aged man named Teruka Ne to help him win a gambling bet. Teruka Ne immediately realizes that the bet has been set up by Sakio, who is the owner of the gambling establishment, although Sakio denies it and claims it to be a coincidence. Teruka Ne then questions Sakio about his purchase of a large hole that has become an icon in their city. But Sakio refuses to explain in detail to Teruka Ne, while informing him that the large hole may be connected to the demon world. However, Teruka Ne seems not to care much about it because he doesn't believe in supernatural things like ghosts and monsters. The following day, Yusuke attends his own funeral to observe people's reactions to his death. At that moment, Yusuke sees Kirino, who is about to attend his funeral but is intercepted by delinquent students who rob him. At the same time, Kuwabara and his friends arrive there and immediately beat up one of the delinquent students who took Kirino's money. Kuwabara intends to fight them, but his friends quickly stop him and try to calm him down. Kuwabara appears deeply upset about Yusuke's tragic death because he never expected it to happen. Knowing that Kuwabara is likely to cause a scene, his friends take him away from the scene. On the other hand, Masaru and his mother also attend Yusuke's funeral, but Masaru seems unaware that Yusuke is already dead, as he tells his mother that Yusuke will surely wake up someday. When everyone had left Yusuke's house, Keiko decided to stay to accompany Atsuko. Keiko then confessed to Atsuko that she had said hurtful things to Yusuke just moments before he died, which made her feel deeply guilty about Yusuke's death. Seeing Keiko so devastated by Yusuke's death, Atsuko tried to console her, telling her that Yusuke's death was not her fault. Unbeknownst to Keiko and Atsuko, Yusuke was currently observing them both and feeling sad for making them cry. That night, while the delinquent students were beating up Kirino, a parasitic insect suddenly landed on Kirino's body and immediately possessed him. Instantly, Kirino began to behave strangely and rose to attack the bullies. At the same time, Kuwabara and his friends, who happened to be nearby, heard Kirino's strange cries and rushed to the source of the commotion. Meanwhile, Kirino, possessed by the parasitic insect, managed to put up a fight, causing the bullies to become extremely frightened. When one of them accidentally dropped a lit lighter, the delinquent students realized that the situation was getting out of control, and they decided to flee. Soon after that, a fire broke out at the scene, and when Kuwabara and his friends arrived, they saw Kirino going berserk. On the other hand, Yusuke decided to accept Ko-enma's offer so that he could be brought back to life for the sake of Atsuko and Keiko, who truly cared for him. However, when Yusuke's spirit was about to return to his body, he found that his house was already on fire, with his body still inside. At that moment, Atsuko tried to enter the burning house to save Yusuke because she believed that Yusuke had come back to life. But her neighbors tried to stop her because the flames had spread throughout the house, which could endanger Atsuko's life. Unexpectedly, Keiko, upon hearing Atsuko's statement that Yusuke had come back to life, bravely entered the burning house to rescue Yusuke. Keiko managed to take Yusuke's body out of the coffin, but as she was about to leave the place, she began to run out of breath and lost consciousness. Upon seeing this, Yusuke pleaded with Ko-enma to bring him back to life, immediately to save Keiko, and promised to obey any orders from Ko-enma. Using a bit of his power, Ko-enma succeeded in sending Yusuke's spirit back into his body, allowing Yusuke to rescue Keiko and take her out of the burning house. Yusuke then instructed his mother to take care of Keiko, while he hurried to the location where the parasitic monster was. Meanwhile, Kuwabara and his friends tried to stop the rampaging Kirino, but they were brutally attacked by Kirino, who was now under the control of the parasitic monster. Kuwabara suddenly became even angrier and more determined to defeat Kirino after Kirino had severely injured his friends to the point where they could no longer resist. However, Kirino, under the control of the parasitic monster, became extremely tough and difficult to defeat. When Kirino was about to kill Kuwabara, Yusuke arrived to help Kuwabara. Although Yusuke had formidable fighting abilities, he appeared overwhelmed in his fight against Hirino, who had become so formidable due to the parasitic monster controlling his body. Yusuke then asked Ko-enma about how to defeat the parasitic monster, but Ko-enma only replied that the only way was by using spiritual energy. Yusuke was initially confused because he didn't know how to harness his spiritual energy, but Botan informed him that Yusuke had unconsciously used his spiritual energy when he saved Keiko in the burning house. After engaging in a fierce battle that drained their strength and left him badly beaten, Yusuke finally managed to defeat Hirino with his spiritual energy, causing the parasitic monster to leave Hirino's body, and he immediately destroyed the parasitic monster. The following day, Yusuke visited Keiko and his mother, who had been waiting for his return. Keiko couldn't hold back her tears when she saw Yusuke alive and standing before her now. Nevertheless, she was overjoyed because Yusuke was alive again, just like Asuko, who hugged them both lovingly and felt very happy because her son had returned to her in a living state. Although Yusuke had successfully destroyed the parasitic monster, Ko-enma seemed unsatisfied with Yusuke's abilities, so he intended to assign Yusuke to a dangerous mission, disregarding Botan's statement that Yusuke was unlikely to defeat them with his current strength. The scene then shifts to show a group of people being attacked by a pack of bloodthirsty monsters. At the same time, a young man named Hiei appears and immediately attacks the monsters using his sword, while a red-haired young man named Kurama tries to retrieve a box that the monsters are attempting to take away. Hiei and Kurama appear to possess formidable fighting abilities as they manage to defeat the monsters without exerting much effort and successfully obtain the items carried by the monsters. At that moment, a demon named Goki manages to obtain the rapacious orb, while Hiei gets the conjuring blade and Kurama acquires the mirror of darkness. The following day, disguised as a human, Goki goes to a playground to test the power of the rapacious orb. A young girl approaches Goki and asks about the orb, but at the same time, a strong wind suddenly blows and all the children in the park suddenly collapse unconscious, including the little girl. Meanwhile, Yusuke appears to be practicing using his spiritual energy with the technique called the spirit gun, which was taught to him by Ko-enma. Ko-enma then explains to Yusuke about Hiei, Kurama, and Goki, who have stolen 3 sacred objects that could endanger humanity if they have malicious intentions. Amidst the explanation, Ko-enma suddenly receives information about the incident that occurred in the park. Soon after that, Yusuke and Botan go to the hospital to check on the condition of the children who fell into a coma after Goki used the power of the rapacious orb. Yusuke asks Botan if there's a way to save the children, but Botan replies that Goki has consumed their souls, making it impossible for Yusuke to save them. On the other hand, Kuwabara appears sad and guilty because his friends were severely injured during their fight against Hirino. Kuwabara, thinking he is weak, apologizes to his friends, but his friends do not blame Kuwabara for the incident, especially since Kuwabara has always protected them. When he is about to leave the hospital, Kuwabara encounters Yusuke and asks about the incident that happened last night. Yusuke openly tells Kuwabara that the high school student who went on a rampage was under the control of a demon, making him incredibly strong. Kuwabara initially thinks Yusuke is talking nonsense, but when he comments on Botan standing next to Yusuke, and his friends think he's hallucinating, Kuwabara immediately realizes that Yusuke is telling the truth about the demon. Soon after that, Botan explains to Yusuke about Goki, who is cruel and enjoys consuming human souls, especially those of children. Yusuke and Botan then go to the park to search for Goki, but their search yields no results, so Yusuke decides to go to the restaurant owned by Keiko's family. Upon arrival, he meets Masaru and his mother, who inform him about the children who have fainted around their apartment complex. Upon learning that, Yusuke quickly goes to the location and finds several children who have fallen unconscious while playing in the yard. At the same time, Yusuke sees Goki walking away from the residential area and decides to follow Goki as he carries a highly suspicious orb. On the other hand, Goki seems to be aware that Yusuke is tailing him, so he immediately runs towards a place filled with junk cars. Goki then intentionally places the rapacious orb to lure Yusuke, and when Yusuke lowers his guard to pick up the orb, Goki attacks him. Goki quickly realizes that Yusuke is an ordinary human, but he wonders how Yusuke knows about the rapacious orb. With his tremendous power, Goki overwhelms Yusuke and launches a continuous attack to prevent Yusuke from having a chance to counterattack. Meanwhile, amidst his battle with Goki, Yusuke becomes aware of the presence of Kurama, who is observing their fight from a distance. When Goki was about to kill Yusuke, at the same time, Masaru appeared and tried to help Yusuke. Upon seeing that, Yusuke immediately told Masaru to run, but unfortunately, Goki attacked Masaru first and used the rapacious orb to extract Masaru's soul from his body. As Goki was about to consume Masaru's soul, Yusuke quickly attacked Goki and fired his spiritual energy using the spirit gun technique taught to him by Koenma. After Yusuke successfully defeated Goki, the children's souls that had been trapped inside the rapacious orb were finally freed and returned to their respective bodies. Soon after that, the children who had been in a coma regained consciousness, including Masaru. That night, Terukane appeared angry and scolded his men for not being able to make a girl shed tears as he had ordered. At that moment, a girl named Yukino was seen imprisoned in an iron cage and subjected to harsh treatment by Terukane, who intentionally made her cry so that she would produce the tear of ice, which he could sell at a high price. After Terukane and his men left, one of Terukane's henchmen secretly approached Yukina to tend to her because he felt pity for her, as she was always treated cruelly by Terukane. The following day, Yusuke informed Botan that Kurama had witnessed his battle against Goki and chose not to intervene, opting instead to help Goki, who was his comrade. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Yusuke and Botan, Kuwabara secretly followed them and eavesdropped on their conversation about the Mirror of Darkness. Botan decided to return to the spirit world, and when she suddenly disappeared, Kuwabara looked very surprised, suspecting that Botan might not be human. Soon after, Yusuke managed to locate Kurama and followed him until they finally arrived at a hospital. Yusuke saw Kurama entering a room, but when he entered the room, Kurama was nowhere to be found. Surprisingly, Kurama suddenly appeared behind him and revealed that he would return the Mirror of Darkness once he had achieved his purpose. Shortly afterward, Yusuke was greeted by a friendly woman who turned out to be Kurama's mother, undergoing treatment at the hospital due to a terminal illness. Despite Kurama's love and deep care for her, he explained to Yusuke that she wasn't his real mother. 17 years ago, Kurama had been severely injured in a battle and had to possess the woman's wand to conceal his presence from pursuing demons. She then gave birth to him, and since then, he had lived in the human world, disguised as her son. Kurama's motive for using the Mirror of Darkness was to save his mother's life, as he wished for her to live happily. Learning this, Yusuke began to question whether a supernatural being like Kurama could genuinely possess compassion and love for an ordinary human. At the same time, unbeknownst to Kurama and Yusuke, Kuwabara had apparently overheard their conversation and learned that Kurama was a demon. While having lunch, Yusuke asked Keiko for her opinion on whether some evil people might have goodness in their hearts. Keiko replied that she always trusted her judgment, just as she believed that Yusuke was actually a good person, despite others thinking that Yusuke was a troublemaker. Soon after that, Botan came to meet Yusuke and informed him about the secret of the Mirror of Darkness. Botan explained that the Mirror of Darkness could indeed grant any wish, but in exchange for that wish, it would take the life of the requester. Upon hearing this, Yusuke hurriedly went to the hospital to stop Kurama. But on the way to the hospital, Yusuke was intercepted by Kuwabara, who learned that Yusuke intended to help Kurama. Kuwabara tried to stop Yusuke because he refused to let Yusuke help a demon like Kurama. However, Yusuke paid no attention to that because, in his judgment, Kurama had goodness in his heart, even though he was a demon. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Kurama immediately used the Mirror of Darkness upon learning that his mother was in critical condition. At that moment, Kurama made a request before the Mirror of Darkness for his mother to recover and live happily. When Yusuke arrived at the hospital, he found that Kurama had already used the Mirror of Darkness and entered the dimension within the magical object. Yusuke immediately tried to enter that dimension, but Kuwabara stopped him because he was concerned for Yusuke's safety. Nevertheless, Yusuke was determined to save Kurama, so he pushed Kuwabara aside and rushed into the dimension. After expressing his feelings of sadness when he saw his mother crying over his death, Yusuke made a request to share half of his life with Kurama so that Kurama could continue to live. Fortunately, Yusuke and Kurama safely exited the dimension, and Kurama's request was granted. Upon seeing that, Kuwabara apologized to Yusuke for misjudging Kurama, but Yusuke didn't mind at all. Soon after, they walked away from the hospital. On the other hand, he was seen holding the Devious and using the power of the Jagan Eye on his forehead to locate another Devious. After a long search, he finally found one of Tarukane's henchmen who was trying to sell Yukina's Devious. He quickly pursued the car and incapacitated the driver to steal the Devious. Shortly afterward, Tarukane appeared furious when he learned that the Devious had been stolen. When he found out that the Devious was stolen by a demon, Tarukane immediately called Sakyo and demanded accountability for the theft. Tarukane even threatened Sakyo by saying he would cancel their contract. However, Sakyo calmly informed Tarukane that he would handle the issue and asked Tarukane to come to his residence with Yukina because he would make Yukina release the Devious. After ending his phone call with Tarukane, Sakyo summoned his subordinates, Toguro, and ordered them to carry out an important mission. On the other hand, Ko-enma, who had learned of Hiei's whereabouts, assigned Yusuke to infiltrate Tarukane's residence because Hiei would undoubtedly come to kill Tarukane. Ko-enma explained that Hiei had obtained the Conjuring Blade, which could grant tremendous power to anyone who used it. He concluded that Hiei had likely used the Conjuring Blade, but he didn't know what powers Hiei had acquired, so he instructed Yusuke to remain vigilant. At the same time, Hiei finally arrived at Tarukane's residence, but a guard informed him that Yukina had been taken away from there. Shortly thereafter, Yusuke appeared and demanded that Hiei return the Conjuring Blade. However, Hiei completely disregarded Yusuke's words because his current priority was to save Yukina. Yusuke tried to attack Hiei, but Hiei's speed far surpassed that of a human, making it difficult for Yusuke to land a blow. Although Yusuke attempted to attack him, Hiei refused to draw his sword because he had never unsheathed it to harm a human. Sometime later, Tarukane and his men finally arrived at Sakyo's residence, located on Kubikukuri Island. On the island, Sakyo had built a secret facility and established an exclusive club consisting of the wealthiest individuals and most influential government officials in the country. Sakyo then invited Tarukane to witness a fight between demons, which also served as a betting event. In this fight, Sakyo ordered Toguro to face a terrifying monster much larger than himself. Some people favored the monster over Toguro, but surprisingly, Toguro managed to defeat the monster with a single strike. Seeing this, Tarukane became completely convinced that Sakyo was the one to trust in handling demons. Shortly thereafter, Sakyo requested that Tarukane move Yukina to a prepared holding cell. When Tarukane's henchmen unveiled the covering cloth of the cage, unexpectedly, they found it empty, indicating that Yukina had already escaped. On the other hand, Yukina had been freed by one of Tarukane's henchmen, who then took her to a helicopter pad. As they were about to board the helicopter, the elder Toguro suddenly appeared and immediately killed the man. Seeing someone being killed before her eyes suddenly made Yukina scream in fear and at the same time produced more of the Devious. Soon after that, Sakyo handed over the fragments of the device to Terukane, who was delighted because he could make a lot of money by selling the item. Sakyo then showed the CCTV camera footage from Terukane's residence, which displayed Hiei and Yusuke. Knowing that Terukane was very concerned about his safety, Sakyo informed him that from now on, Terukane would be guarded by some of his subordinates, including the Toguro, who would protect him from any attacks. The next day, Botan informed Yusuke that Ko-enma had appointed a mentor who would train Yusuke in using his spiritual energy. At the same time, Kuwabara suddenly appeared and told them that he also wanted to train with Yusuke so that he could become stronger. Botan then brought Yusuke and Kuwabara to a remote temple to meet their mentor, Master Genkai. The master was initially puzzled by Kuwabara's presence since she had been assigned to train only Yusuke. Kuwabara explained to Genkai that he wanted her to train him so that he could defeat Yusuke, who was his rival. Upon hearing that, Yusuke immediately became annoyed, and they engaged in an argument, which ended up with them being thrown backward by Genkai's power. In the following hours, Yusuke appeared to be practicing balance to maximize his spirit gun technique. However, Yusuke believed that balancing exercises were a waste of time because he needed to become stronger as soon as possible and asked Genkai to provide more practical training. Knowing that Yusuke was impatient, Genkai instructed him to attack her while she stood at ease. Without hesitation, Yusuke launched an attack on Genkai, but surprisingly, Genkai easily evaded Yusuke's attacks, even without using her hands. Genkai could also counterattack, leaving Yusuke overwhelmed, although she praised him for quickly imitating her fighting techniques. After Yusuke could no longer get up due to exhaustion, Genkai told him to start training seriously because he wouldn't be able to defeat Hiei with his current strength. Meanwhile, Botan seemed to be observing Kuwabara, who was practicing with a wooden sword to break a large rock. Yusuke commented that Kuwabara's training goal seemed impossible to achieve, but Genkai responded that Kuwabara had greater determination than Yusuke and warned him that Kuwabara might surpass him because he was trained diligently. On the other hand, Kurama approached Hiei to inquire about Hiei's younger sister, whom he had not been able to find. Realizing that Hiei had successfully opened the Jagan Eye using the conjuring blade, Kurama asked Hiei to give him the blade so he could return it to Yusuke. However, Hiei refused because he didn't trust humans and had no interest in befriending them. Meanwhile, Sakyo appeared to be overseeing a giant machine that would be used to open a portal connecting the human world and the demon world. One of the scientists working on the machine informed Sakyo that they needed a larger machine to open the portal to its full extent because the current machine could only open a portal the size of a human's fist. Although the new machine required more funding, Sakyo didn't seem too concerned about money because he had a way to acquire a substantial amount. Sakyo then approached Toguro, who stated that he wanted to return to the demon world because, during his time in the human world, he had not found a strong enough opponent to enjoy life and death battles. Sometime later, Yusuke had made some progress in his balance training, although Genkai seemed somewhat dissatisfied with Yusuke's achievements as he had been training for more than 10 days but had not shown significant improvement. Realizing that Yusuke was ambitious to become stronger to defeat Hiei, Genkai told him that the most important thing was not necessarily defeating Hiei. If Yusuke failed to defeat Hiei now, there might be someone in the future who could defeat him. Genkai also added that Ko-enma wouldn't immediately take Yusuke's life if he failed to fulfill his duties as an astral detective. Therefore, Genkai urged Yusuke to reconsider his priorities in life. Shortly thereafter, Genkai met with Botan and instructed her to convey her message to Ko-enma. Genkai told Botan that training Yusuke was a futile effort because Yusuke's goal was only to defeat Hiei. However, Yusuke needed strong determination and noble goals to fully harness his spirit energy. On the other hand, Kuwabara continued his intense training, despite breaking numerous wooden swords and injuring his hands from training day and night. Nevertheless, Kuwabara refused to give up because he wanted to become stronger to protect the people around him. Thanks to his strong determination and noble goals, Kuwabara finally completed his training and could awaken his spirit energy to split a large rock with a wooden sword. Seeing Kuwabara's remarkable achievement made Yusuke realize his mistakes and decide to train seriously, as instructed by Genkai. Several days later, Yusuke finally completed his training and could use his spirit energy to its maximum extent, which was also noticed by Toguro, who accidentally witnessed the extraordinary flash of Yusuke's spirit energy, darting across the sky like lightning. Soon after that, Genkai sensed imminent danger, so she decided to give the spirit wave orb to Yusuke and instructed both Yusuke and Kuwabara to leave the temple as their training was now complete. That night, Toguro arrived at the temple and commented on Genkai's aging appearance, while he still looked the same as when they met 50 years ago. Toguro then inquired about the spirit wave orb, and Genkai replied that she had given it to someone else. Upon hearing that, Toguro became furious because he had long desired the power of the spirit wave orb, but Genkai had given it to someone else. Meanwhile, on a rainy night, Yusuke, who was heading home, was startled by the appearance of Hiei, who then kidnapped Keiko to lure Yusuke. Upon seeing this, Yusuke immediately chased after Hiei and arrived at an abandoned building, which served as Hiei's hideout. Without wasting any time, Yusuke attacked Hiei and demanded to know Keiko's whereabouts. Surprisingly, the person who had kidnapped Keiko was not Hiei, but the elder Toguro, who was disguised as Hiei. Keiko tried to resist by slapping the elder Toguro, but he became enraged and struck Keiko's abdomen, causing her to collapse unconscious. Keiko was then placed in a cage next to Yukina. In the meantime, after training with Genkai for nearly a month, Yusuke finally managed to match Hiei's speed, and was even able to launch attacks on Hiei using a more stable and efficient spirit gun technique. Amidst their battle, Kurama suddenly appeared and intervened, revealing to Yusuke that Hiei was not the one who kidnapped Keiko. Kurama then explained to them that Keiko and Hiei's younger sister, Yukina, were being held captive on Kubikukuri Island, which was Sakyo's residence. Although Kurama had warned them that Keiko's kidnapping might be a trap for Yusuke, Yusuke completely ignored it because his priority at the moment was to save Keiko. Yusuke then approached Hiei to apologize for accusing him of kidnapping Keiko. Yusuke also asked Hiei to join him so they could rescue both Keiko and Yukina. Unexpectedly, Kuwabara suddenly appeared and firmly stated to Yusuke that he would help him rescue Keiko. Hiei initially disagreed with Kuwabara joining them because Kuwabara was just a regular human and would burden them. Upon hearing that, Kuwabara became irritated and challenged Hiei to a fight, but Yusuke immediately intervened and told Kuwabara that Hiei was their friend, and their priority now was to save Keiko and Yukina. While Yusuke and the others prepared to depart for Kubikukuri Island by boat, Toguro was seen getting ready to leave the temple after successfully killing Genkai. On the way to Kubikukuri Island, Kurama explained to Yusuke about Sakyo, who forced fellow demons to fight and turned those battles into a gambling spectacle attended by wealthy people who enjoyed watching life and death struggles as entertainment. On the other hand, the members of the exclusive club took their seats, ready to witness the battles arranged by Sakyo. Yusuke and the others finally arrived on Kubikukuri Island, but unexpectedly, Hiei decided to separate from them because he didn't want to burden them in their efforts to save Yukina. Kuwabara appeared upset and thought Hiei was selfish, but Kurama asked him to understand Hiei. As they arrived at an abandoned building, Kurama was surprised by the appearance of a demon named Karasu, who seemed interested in Kurama's red hair. Knowing that Karasu was a formidable opponent, Kurama asked Yusuke and Kuwabara to leave while he confronted Karasu. After they left, Karasu commented on Kurama's friendship with humans, even though Kurama was once known as a cruel and cold-hearted demon. On the other hand, He arrived at a location where he was confronted by a demon named Bui, assigned by Sakyo to fight Hiei. At the same time, Terukane and the other wealthy individuals placed bets on Karasu and Bui winning, believing they could corner Kurama and Hiei in a fierce battle. On the other side, Yusuke and Kuwabara decided to split up, while Yukina revealed to Keiko that she was a demon after healing Keiko's injured hand. Kurama appeared to be overwhelmed in avoiding Karasu's relentless fire-based attacks. Nevertheless, Kurama refused to give up and attempted to counter with his whip, made from the roots of a rose plant. However, Karasu was strong enough to withstand the attack and retaliated with a fatal strike that caused Kurama to lose his whip. To face Karasu's next attack, Kurama used red roses that effectively injured Karasu's hand. However, Karasu responded with a series of even more terrifying attacks. Karasu believed he had defeated Kurama with those strikes, but surprisingly, Kurama was able to evade them and transform into his true form as a white-haired fox demon. In his demon form, Kurama easily avoided Karasu's attacks and launched a counterattack by growing ojigi plants that would attack anything in motion. On the other hand, Hiei successfully outmatched his opponent with his sword skills, causing Bui to decide to remove his damaged armor. Meanwhile, Keiko pretended to have a stomachache to deceive a guard. After successfully incapacitating the guard, Keiko then stole his key and intended to free Yukina. Unexpectedly, Yukina refused to escape because she didn't want Keiko to risk her life after saving her. However, Keiko told Yukina not to give up and to keep fighting to stay alive, eventually convincing Yukina to escape with her. Meanwhile, Karasu appeared to struggle to avoid the pursuing ojiji plants, eventually getting caught by the demon plants. However, at the same time, Kurama realized that his spiritual energy had been depleted because ojigi plants had withered, allowing Karasu to seize the opportunity and launch a fatal attack on Kurama. A similar situation unfolded with Hiei, who seemed overwhelmed by Bui's relentless attacks. Without his armor, Bui had more freedom of movement, allowing him to match Hiei's speed. Soon after that, Bui unleashed an attack that sent Hiei crashing and severely wounded him. Bui believed Hiei was dead, but surprisingly, Hiei managed to rise and decided to use his signature technique. Hiei then tore off his sleeve, revealing a white bandage that covered almost his entire right arm. Shortly thereafter, Hiei removed the bandage, revealing a black dragon tattoo, which represented his powerful technique, the Dragon of the Darkness Flame. With this technique, Hiei summoned black flames from the depths of the spirit world, shaping them into the form of a dragon, capable of instantly incinerating nearly anything in its path. With just one attack using the Dragon of the Darkness Flame, Hiei defeated Bui and ended the battle. Meanwhile, Kurama, who had returned to his human form, seemed overwhelmed by Karasu's continuous attacks. Karasu felt confident that he would eventually defeat Kurama. However, Kurama refused to give up and tried to fight back by pressing the wound on Karasu's hand. Karasu assumed that Kurama was doing this because he had lost hope, but surprisingly, Kurama secretly inserted the seed of the death plant into Karasu's body through the wound, waiting for the plant's demon roots to grow. With a single word, Kurama activated his demon energy on the seed of the death plant, and instantly, the plant's roots began to grow and spread throughout Karasu's body until the death plant burst forth from within him, killing him. On the other hand, the wealthy individuals who had bet on Bui and Karasu winning were frustrated because they lost billions after Kurama and Hiei emerged victorious. In their attempt to escape from the area, Keiko accidentally struck Kuwabara because she thought he was one of Sakyo's henchmen. When Kuwabara saw Yukina, he instantly fell in love with her and told her that he had come to the island to rescue her. Kuwabara and the others then arrived at a place where they were confronted with 3 large doors. Using the access card she had stolen from a guard, Keiko attempted to open one of the doors, but unfortunately, she accidentally opened the door that contained a terrifying monster. After the door swung open fully, the monster immediately chased after the 3 of them, attempting to attack them. Kuwabara and the others scattered, diverting the monster's attention. Keiko drew the monster's focus by banging an iron rod on the floor and ran toward Kuwabara. She then handed the rod to Kuwabara and rushed toward Yukina to protect her. At the same time, Keiko discovered that the room had a revolving door, so she hurriedly searched for the button to lower the revolving door. Keiko called out to Kuwabara and told him to head towards the revolving door because she would close it. Upon hearing that, Kuwabara attempted to divert the monster's attention, and with his agility, Kuwabara finally managed to escape the monster's attack, along with Keiko, who closed the revolving door just in time. Although they had successfully saved themselves from the monster, Kuwabara and the others found themselves facing the elder Toguro, who was much stronger than the monster. Meanwhile, Yusuke finally arrived in the arena where he would face Toguro. At the same time, Sakio told Terukane and the others that he would double their money, which only heightened their excitement, leading them to place the highest bet on Toguro winning. While Yusuke was engaged in a fierce battle against Toguro, Kuwabara appeared overwhelmed by the elder Toguro, who relentlessly attacked him. Simultaneously, Sakio's massive machine successfully opened a portal connecting the demon world and the human world, allowing a swarm of parasitic insects to cross into the human world. Upon learning this, Koenma immediately used his powers to create a barrier around the large hole to prevent the parasitic insects from attacking the city's residents. On the other hand, the elder Toguro managed to corner Kuwabara and injured him. But surprisingly, Kuwabara managed to awaken his spiritual energy and used the Raiken technique to counterattack. Kuwabara believed that he had defeated the elder Toguro, but unexpectedly, the demon was still able to rise and launch a fatal attack on Kuwabara. Meanwhile, Yusuke's battle against Toguro intensified, damaging the arena and causing Terukane to nearly get injured due to collapsing iron pillars. Seeing that the battle was becoming increasingly life-threatening, Terukane and the other guests decided to escape from the scene, while Sakio remained seated calmly in his chair. Shortly afterward, Koenma approached Sakio to inquire about his intentions for creating the portal, despite Sakio being a human and how his actions would endanger the safety of humanity. Sakio replied that he wanted to link the human world and the demon world, as it was in ancient times when Koenma had not separated the two realms. Sakio was confident that the barrier created by Koenma would not last long, as Koenma had taken the time to visit him. Meanwhile, Yusuke appeared overwhelmed by Toguro due to the significant difference in their strengths. When Toguro was about to deliver a fatal blow to Yusuke, Hiya and Kurama arrived to help him. Upon seeing them, Sakio challenged Koenma to a bet. If Yusuke and the others managed to defeat Toguro, Sakio promised to stop the machine. However, if Toguro won, Sakio demanded that Koenma destroy the barrier so he could proceed with his grand plan. Knowing that Koenma was not interested in his offer, Sakio then staked his life on the bet, which made Koenma change his mind and accept the offer. Koenma told Yusuke that the fate of humanity was now in his hands, so Yusuke had to fight hard to defeat Toguro. However, Yusuke replied that he didn't care about that at all, because his current priority was to save Keiko. Although Yusuke and the others joined forces to fight Toguro, Toguro still appeared to be far superior to them, and was able to defeat them several times without much effort. When Toguro gripped Yusuke's throat, ready to kill him, Kurama and Hiyi tried to stop Toguro with their weapons. Yusuke managed to free himself after Kurama and Hiyi worked together to restrain Toguro's body. Soon after that, Yusuke took the opportunity to launch a counterattack using the spirit gun technique, successfully pushing the massive Toguro backward, impaling him on a sharp piece of iron. However, Yusuke immediately used the spirit gun technique to try and kill him. But unexpectedly, Toguro was able to deflect the attack and rise again, as if Yusuke's attack had no impact on his body. Toguro then expressed his disappointment in Yusuke, whom he initially thought was a formidable opponent, given his incredible spiritual energy. On the other hand, Sakyo was monitoring the CCTV cameras and noticed that Keiko and Yukina had successfully escaped with the help of Kuwabara. At that moment, Sakyo also saw that Kuwabara was able to confront the elder Toguro with his spiritual energy, even though Kuwabara was quite badly injured from the attack. Meanwhile, Terukane appeared to be in a hurry to reach Yukina's prison cell and take her away from the island. But upon arriving there, he discovered that Yukina had already escaped from the place. At the same time, a monstrous creature suddenly appeared behind Terukane, ready to pounce on him. As Kuwabara and the others were about to escape from the facility, Sakyo intentionally closed the revolving door in front of them and led them to the battle arena, where Yusuke and the others were fighting against Toguro. Seeing Yusuke severely injured from Toguro's attacks, Keiko immediately ran to help him. However, Yusuke stopped Keiko and told her not to approach so that she wouldn't get hurt. At the same time, the elder Toguro appeared and was excited, thinking that he had defeated Yusuke and the others. The elder Toguro then revealed to Yusuke about Genkai's death, stating that her death was in vain because Yusuke was still weak and unable to defeat Toguro. Yusuke and Kuwabara appeared shocked upon learning that their master had passed away. On the other hand, the elder Toguro continued to share the past of Genkai, who was actually Toguro's best friend. In the past, Genkai and Toguro were ambitious teenagers aiming to become martial arts masters. However, Toguro chose to become a demon and received assistance from the demon world, which made him immortal, unlike Genkai, who aged normally. He also revealed that Genkai had transferred all her spiritual energy to as her disciple and, in the end, was killed by her best friend, Toguro. Unexpectedly, the elder Toguro's words about Genkai and his past disgusted Toguro, and he decided to kill his elder brother, believing that his brother was only holding him back. On the other hand, after learning that his master had been killed, Kuwabara released his spiritual energy and tried to attack Toguro using the Raiken technique. However, Toguro easily blocked the attack and knocked down Kuwabara with a few punches while explaining his reasons for killing Genkai. Upon hearing that, Yusuke remembered the moments when he trained with Genkai and when Genkai transferred her spiritual energy to him. Seeing Kuwabara nearly dying from being choked by Toguro, Yusuke tried to rise and managed to gather all his strength to launch a counterattack. Yusuke then unleashed his spiritual energy to the maximum and successfully attacked Toguro, with several blows that knocked Toguro down. Kuwabara and the others looked in amazement at Yusuke's extraordinary strength, while Ko-enma felt confident that Yusuke could win the battle. However, Sakyo calmly replied that it was impossible for Yusuke to defeat Toguro. Soon after that, Toguro managed to rise with his tremendous, trembling power, revealing his demon form. With his incredible power, Toguro could easily attack Kuwabara and Yusuke using air pressure from his finger flick. As Yusuke appeared cornered by Toguro Botan, who was in the spirit world, informed Ko-enma about the events that led to Toguro's reincarnation as a demon. 50 years ago, one of Toguro's disciples was killed by a demon named Kairen. Toguro confronted Kairen to avenge his disciple's death, although in the end, the demon managed to defeat him and devour Toguro's other disciples. Realizing that he needed something to fully awaken Yusuke's power, Toguro targeted Keiko and Yukina because Yusuke cared for them. At the same time, glimpses of Toguro's past appeared, where he, as a human, had to witness his disciples being slaughtered by Kairen with his own eyes. In the present, Hiei tried to attack Toguro to divert his focus from Yukina and Keiko, as did Kuwabara and Kurama, who worked together to stop Toguro. Unfortunately, their efforts were in vain as Toguro easily knocked them down and fatally injured them. As Toguro walked towards the frightened Keiko and Yukina, Kuwabara stepped in and pleaded with him not to hurt them. However, Toguro replied that he would kill them all if necessary, so that Yusuke would unleash his full power to fight him. Upon hearing that, Kuwabara tried to attack Toguro, but unfortunately, His efforts made him an easier target for Toguro. Without hesitation, Toguro immediately stabbed Kuwabara right in the heart, seemingly killing him. Upon seeing that, Yusuke instantly became furious and sad, which allowed him to fully awaken his spiritual energy. At the same time, Botan appeared and wondered if Yusuke could stand up against Toguro with his newfound power. Ko-enma replied that Yusuke's current power was almost equal to Toguro's, but he still doubted whether Yusuke could control such extraordinary power perfectly. With this newfound power, Yusuke managed to defeat Toguro with a single punch. However, Toguro attempted to mentally intimidate Yusuke by saying that he didn't need anyone in this world because eventually his family and friends would leave him. But Yusuke affirmed that he would protect them all because he cared about them and because he had also promised Genkai. Soon after that, Yusuke gathered all his strength into his finger and used his signature technique to launch one final attack against Toguro. Toguro struggled to contain the immense power with all his might, but his efforts were in vain, as in the end, he couldn't withstand the impact of Yusuke's power and lost his life. On the other hand, Kuwabara surprisingly managed to withstand Toguro's fatal attack, and upon learning that, Yukina quickly approached Kuwabara to heal him. Kuwabara then apologized to Yukina for the mistreatment she received from Terukane. Nevertheless, Kuwabara told Yukina that not all humans were evil and mistreated demons, because many humans had kindness in their hearts and treated everyone, including demons. Upon hearing that, Yukina smiled and told Kuwabara that she liked them because they had fought hard to save her. On the other hand, Hiei decided to hand over the conjuring blade to Kurama and said that he no longer needed the item. At the same time, Sakyo fulfilled his promise to shut down the machine because he lost the bet to Ko-enma. Sakyo also fulfilled his promise to do the unthinkable, but after that, his fate remained unknown. Soon after that, as Yusuke and his friends walked away from the island, Yukina approached Hiei to inquire about her brother. Yukina had apparently been searching for her brother for years, although she had never met him. Upon learning this, Hiei gave Yukina the tear of ice he had kept all this time, but he denied when Yukina assumed he was her brother. Hiei simply told Yukina that he was Yusuke's friend. In the spirit world, Ko-enma sent Toguro's spirit to hell because he had chosen the path of demons to gain power. However, Ko-enma stated that Toguro was actually suffering because he was haunted by guilt over the deaths of his disciples and had been punishing himself for failing to protect the people he loved. On the other hand, as Toguro walked the path to hell, he encountered Genkai, who asked him to seek forgiveness from Ko-enma so that he could be sent to heaven. Genkai had apparently learned that Toguro willingly sold his soul to demons to punish himself for the deaths of his disciples. However, Toguro denied this and told Genkai to leave him alone. Toguro then told Genkai that Yusuke would grow stronger in the future, but if he wasn't careful, he would end up like him. Upon hearing that, Genkai replied that Toguro was a kind-hearted person because he still cared about the person who defeated him, and Toguro also restrained himself when he stabbed Kuwabara to avoid killing him. On their way home, Yusuke apologized to Keiko for involving her in his troubles and endangering her life. However, Keiko didn't mind at all, because she gained new friends who were demons, which was something new and enjoyable for her. Keiko thanked Yusuke for fighting so hard to protect her. Yusuke then looked up to the sky and shouted to Genkai in heaven that he had kept his promise to her. The series ended by showing an island not far from Kubikukuri Island, where a seagull was pecking at the head of the still-living elder Toguro. Moral lesson from the story: it's better to make sure you're talking to the right person before getting into a fight, or you might end up getting your head pecked by seagull.